our own Haley Fouch was doing the set visit for Birds of Prey, and they thank you. I was waiting for that. And so when they asked director Kathy Yan what specific amount of time passed since we saw Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad last, she said something very interesting. She said there's not any known amount of time. No, kind of exists in a parallel timeline. And that's all she said. They didn't really go into it more than that. But when she says parallel timeline, that this Harley could be, what? Disconnected from Suicide Squad, events of Suicide Squad, which is then disconnected because Batman is in that, disconnected from Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League, and what have you. What does this mean?
So if I'm understanding correctly, this is to keep the story specifically for Birds of Prey, the movie, separate from every other movie.
Possibly, but let's talk about what DC means when they talk about timelines or multiverse or Earths, because it is very confusing. And as somebody who is a DC comic book reader, movie watcher, TV watcher, I'm still slightly... I know you guys love when I say I'm confused. I'm still slightly confused.
Are you confused?
I'm just sometimes it's just really confusing for my little head.
It's just so confusing.
And I don't know how it gets under my blonde hair, but it just gets stuck in there, so it gets hard to get out the information.
That's what she
sometimes.
Said,
yeah. But here's what I gather. Here's what I gather from the specific phrase "parallel timeline." This is not parallel Earth. This is not a different Earth. Parallel timeline would be more like a Flashpoint type situation where we are living in a different timeline, same Earth. But I don't know if that's what you gather from that phrase, John.
Well, she's an unreliable narrator. So the parallel timeline makes sense because who knows how much of any of this is going to be the truth that we're watching. So she has a right to create her own timeline.
So you think it's not an actual phrase like parallel timeline? Everybody's living on this earth on a parallel timeline? You think it's more of a Harley's parallel?
Yes. Because...
Did you think
like
that with Joker? Did you think he was an unreliable narrator watching it, or no? Because some people think that.
Well, because I don't think he's telling a story.
Okay.
There are shots...
Okay.
There are sequences where he's not involved.
Okay.
So I don't think it's the same thing. But Todd said it was a not connected. So to me, I just dismissed it as that.
Okay.
But with this feels... Because if you... Haley also talked about the first 5 minutes of the film, which they showed down in Brazil, and she is narrating from the beginning what she has done and what she's doing, what's changed, breaking up with a Joker, ramming her car into Axis Chemicals and blowing up the whole chemical plant to kind of be a separation from the Joker. We don't know how much of that is really true and not true, and Harley Quinn is insane. So how much of what we're watching is the actual truth of what's happening? We don't know. If she's our guide through all of it, and her name is in the title, then I don't know how much of it we can take as canon or as gospel. And
she
so,
obviously must have titled her own story too, because the only reason that they had one fabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn is like, this is her story and I'm writing it.
And I love that.
And I got it that it was connected to Suicide Squad with that title because of her relationship with Joker in that movie, and that this is her breaking free of that and having this. But to your point, John, here's the quote. Harley is the narrator of the story, a very unreliable, erratic narrator, which is fun, Robbie said, but also gives, I think, the audience an opportunity to kind of be inside her brain sometimes and see the world through her eyes. So I love the idea that it's parallel, that it might be a not faux timeline, but she's making it up. This is her world. Is she crazy? Is she having problems? Is this
is the movie going to be like a kind of as us viewing her brain?
Yeah. It is interesting because maybe these are the words that Kathy Yan said, and I'm putting too much weight in them. But she didn't say alternate timeline.
Right.
She did say parallel. So maybe what she's actually alluding to is that while other things are going on in DC, this is simultaneously going on with Harley.
Sure.
And it could be as simple as that.
Yeah.
Sure.
This doesn't bother me. I saw some people on the internet saying this is their way to tell whatever story they want and then kind of retcon everything else and have it going back to normal. If that is the case, I'm still fine with it because make a good movie, tell me whatever story you want to tell. That's the benefit of being with the DC, that you can do that, that we can have all these different pockets and timelines and Earths and characters that are the same in the TV and the movies and different actors playing them. That's why it all does work. But I don't actually think that's what they're saying. I don't think that we're receiving a different Harley than Suicide Squad's Harley. And this is like Earth 5 Harley as opposed to Earth 38 Harley, and this is her parallel story.
Well, and here's an newsflash. This happens in the comics all the time. Brian Azzarello's Joker, which is one of the best.
So good.
Oh, it's a
So
great
right,
one,
right.
yeah.
Beautiful
None
art.
of that leads into overall canon of anything. It was just this guy having one night with the Joker and what his experience was like through his eyes. So it's one story. It happens all the time in comics. Why wouldn't it happen in the movies? I know people say, "Oh, cop out, cop out." No, just let's have a good movie, and what needs to connect will connect, and what doesn't. And who cares? We enjoyed ourselves in the theater.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. No, we're Roxy, with your point, it's like when I read this, I was like, it's gonna be interesting for the fans that like, do we need it all to be connected, or can we just go to what you're literally
Right,
saying,
right.
which is comic book movies? They can exist just one shot.
Yeah.
And so it's a movie, and if it does well, we can then get a sequel or continue that story. But connecting to the bigger picture that all these movies have to be connected, we see the Joker is not the case, and it did very well. So it's up to the audience. Do you care? I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
Just
then-
if you want to see a good movie, go see your movie.
Yep, and you should care because it happens in the comics all the time.
Happens in the comics all the
and
time.
That's why you have different authors and different timelines, and yeah.